born on loudspeaker, so you can imagine these mic situations. My name is Thato Kgathhanye, also formerly known actually as the Struggling Billionaire. I've since rebranded, but we won't talk about that right now. I'm the co-founder of Thato, which is a social startup that was started by myself and a friend of mine actually from our childhood days, Rhea. I'm 22 years old, as she said, and pretty much we've been doing amazing work in the social space. I'm a social entrepreneur. What does that mean? I think the journey that you guys are going to get onto is exactly the same journey that I've been through with Rhea. Now, when I was approached to, come give a talk today, I recognized that I needed to actually track back a little bit and start thinking about how I felt when I started on the journey and how Rhea might have also felt when we started the journey. So what is fear? Fear is starting a company when you're 18 years old. So Rhea and I founded the company when we were 18. We had zero funding. We couldn't even get a bank loan. And pretty much we were going into varsity. What we both decided was we would get into varsity, and each and every single thing that we learned, we would learn back into our company. So that when we were done studying, we wouldn't be left out in the cold and we'd actually have jobs. So we were employed before we were even studying, pretty much. And what dawned on us then was, we could actually start building a foundation for a company that would, at the end of the day, as our dreams, came about, is that we'd be building an empire. So I'm not talking to you about a social startup, I'm talking to you about what could potentially be an empire. That sounds very audacious, yes, for a 22-year-old, yes, for someone that couldn't even get a bank loan. But we actually had the audacity to start. And in having the audacity to wake up every day, to actually see our dreams through, we had the humility to share our dreams with the people around us and see how we could actually piece it together. So when you start dancing with fear, which is a concept that Rhea and I do every day, we literally, what do you guys call those dance? We actually dance with fear every day, seriously. We call it embracing vulnerability and the fact that, we don't have to take ourselves seriously, because when we started our journey, right, we were trying to fundraise to be able to employ people, to be able to, put products into the hands of the people that need it the most. And when you start with a purpose so large, you will grind and you will wake up and actually make things a reality. So just to give you a story, I'm going to share with you guys 3 stories that illustrate pretty much how far we've come and what can happen if you choose to dance with fear. We entered the South African Breweries competition. 1 million rand was up for grabs. We were up against doctors and scientists and people that had products such as being able to inject bone marrow in Lord knows where. And it was pretty scary. You're up against doctors. We barely had degrees. I mean, we were just in first year. We knew nothing. But we stood proudly, it's not very clear, but as you can see there, we stood proudly and pitched. And even though we just had one product, we knew we wanted to be sitting in a company that a year later, we'd actually employ 20 people. We didn't know where we would get the people to work for us. We didn't know what we were going to teach them, but we knew that we wanted to do work that matters in our community. And so we pitched, and what actually came out of it is that we ended up getting seed grant of 300,000 rand. Do you guys know how much 300,000 rand is? What could you buy? You could buy a Beamer, right? You could buy a very nice car. But we actually chose not to just look for money and splurge or do crazy things. But what we actually then did is we took that money, invested it into the business, and up to a point where currently, as I stand before you, we actually have employed 8 people at the age of 22 years old. We're currently actually getting into the process of training 12. So at the end of the year, we'll be employing 20 people, paying salaries, and essentially giving people access to income that, they can actually go and spend on their kids' uniform, and more than just we're making a difference, but tangible impact that you and I can actually see. And I believe as young people, while you work, you need to have swag. What is swag? Swag is pretty much an acronym for stop, watching, and grind, because I think a lot of us sit back on stays in varsity and think things are going to come to us, or think I need a bachelor's degree in order to make a ruckus and actually make a dent in the world. No, you don't. You need to grind. You need to wake up every morning early and actually have an audacious dream that you're working towards. And that's exactly what we did. In setting up a company, everything is up to you. So people come to you for answers. So there was no rubric about what our website needed to say. There was no rubric to mark us on what we were saying at pitches. There was no rubric that determined how our business takes shape and how quickly we actually grow. So everything is up to you, and that's where grinding comes in, and you need to be able to know what you're hustling towards. And that is why I think it's very important, especially when you're working in a social business, to be able to realize that you need to have a strong purpose and wake up realizing that you need to make that a reality. So what do we do? Our company pretty much takes plastic bags, so a lot of South Africans refer to it as chekase, right? Like ShopRite, Woolies, whatever. We take that and we upcycle it into a textile that is then used onto a backpack. But what makes our product so, wow and crazy is the fact that we've found a way to integrate solar technology into a bag. Why? Because we recognize the importance of actually doing more with less. So let me tell you a scenario about a child that would use this bag. So let's call this child Dineo, because Dineo is in the crowd. Let's say, Dineo wakes up every morning and she actually needs to go to school. So she only has 2 school books. It's raining. She doesn't have a school bag. She actually has a plastic bag, which she calls a school bag, right? She puts her books in a plastic bag and walks to school. 5 kilometers, it's far. After, when she actually gets to school, because it was raining, her book is actually rained on, and some of the maths homework that she did can't actually be seen because the pen actually ran. She then has to leave school early because she can't actually take part in sports because she has to get home before the sun sets. Why is that even a thought? Because unlike other kids that actually have the luxury of being able to burn the midnight oil and switch on a light, Dineo has to use sunlight, natural light, because her family rations that she actually has to use 1 candle every day for the whole week. So Dineo uses candles. And that is why sometimes she can't even finish her homework. So we've integrated the solar panel so that Dineo can actually study till late at night. Why? Because while she's walking to school, the solar panel is charging, and then when she gets back home, then she can actually use it to study. So these are some of the things that seem ingenious, but it just took us being able to listen to the kids. And why am I telling you this as part of a story about dancing with fear is you need to recognize that, as people are coming up with apps and crazy, tech startups, you need to recognize that we live in South Africa. There's so many problems that exist in our communities that we actually need to sit down and say, before I go looking at an app, we need to start somewhere. And that takes each and every single one of you sitting here and being able to say, you know what, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm going to do it. And that takes a certain level of vulnerability. So our work may seem simple, but it's not. The kind of impact that we're trying to create may seem far-fetched, but it's not. Each and every single day, Ray and I wake up early in the morning. I mean, this morning I was up at like 4 o'clock. And the reason I wake up so early is not because I set my alarm, but because our dreams are so big and they're so scary that every hour I spend sleeping is an hour that a child might not actually have access to this. So I'd like for you guys to, as much as you may have fear, please dream audaciously. Please dream of, you know, coming up with the next university, for instance, or crazy ideas that are actually going to change the game and change how things are done, because we need that. And because of how far we've come, yes, I was called the struggling billionaire, but actually rebranded. And part of the reason was, you know, we were sitting, I'm originally from Rustenburg, which is in the Northwest. Yeah, put it up. And I think when you sit down and you consider where you're from, don't think Silicon Valley is the next big place I want to be at. I worked in New York, but I didn't want to work in New York. I wanted to work at home in Rustenburg. Why? Because there's so much opportunity. And once you recognize that we're literally at a point in our lives where we could become essentially the next Bill Gates and the next Steve Jobs, then you can actually dream and think, I can actually like kill this, you know? So coming from Rustenburg and imagining that our business, you know, operating out of a small factory, can reach the likes of Bill Gates to firstly read about us as part of an article that we did, right? And to imagine him reading about what we did, picking up his cell phone or typing on his, I'm assuming, a Microsoft computer, and to actually be able to say something as crazy as some creative South Africans innovated a school bag, it just kind of gives you a sense of anything is possible. Anything is possible. I've never met the man, right? But he knows about us. He knows about us. And I just want you guys to take that into mind and realize that you guys are actually so privileged that, you know, the university is actually helping you guys as part of a 20-week program and bringing, you know, crazy people like myself on campus to share our journey. But you're so lucky because our journey, we walked alone up to a point where when big people like that hear about us, we're like, wow, someone is actually paying attention. But you've got people like Gina and people like Lisa that are actually organizing big yellow curtains to remind you guys, make a difference. No one reminded us. We had to remind ourselves that, you know what, yes, my mom's asking me whether I'm going to get a job and stop like grinding at this social entrepreneurship thing, but you know, that you are so privileged. So use the opportunity, and you know, it may not work, and that is okay. But you would have said that you actually tried. And just to close it off, I mean, we weren't doing this to be famous or anything, but I think once you start doing work with a purpose, you actually have big people in business listening, and you have big people, you know, actually looking to you for answers. So I'd like to urge each and every single one of you to realize that you are the next, you know, Steve Jobs. You are the next Bill Gates. They're old. They've got gray hair. Like, everyone is looking for the next big thing. And one thing I always say is the world is waiting for who you're becoming. The question is, how long will you make us wait? Will you make us wait a day longer? Will you make us wait a year longer? Will you wait to climb the corporate ladder, or will you decide that, you know what, I'm a boss and I'm the boss of my freaking, you know, startup, and I'm gonna kill it. And before you know it, you'll be sitting with a company that's valued at a lot of money. So do it. I hope to see you guys at the top. I know I'm talking to some of the greatest leaders in South Africa. I hope to see you guys on Forbes 30 under 30 because we're young. I hope to see each and every single one of you winning. And yeah, I'll see you at the top, guys. Thank you.